good evening and welcome everyone to the next of our rural support and wellbeing webinars held via the Future Farm Resilience Programme. Tonight's we've named Helping Farmers. It's quite a broad heading, but you'll see later with our speakers this evening. Just before we kick off, I just wanted to just go through a little bit of housekeeping. Obviously, as normal, I don't know, most people now are obviously au fait with all the chat functions and the mute function. It would try and keep it as informal as possible this evening. So if you would like to unmute yourself and ask a question to any of our speakers, they're very happy to accept those. But you can see by using any of the things, if you want to put on your camera, or if not, if you don't want to speak out, you can always use the chat function as well. And I will, myself and Luke, will try and share those questions or comments with the speakers as we go through. This evening, the session will be recorded. And however, if there is anything of your details that you do not want to be shared, then you can let us know via a contact email, Luke Groves Davis, or you can contact us via telephone and we can make sure that we have any of your details omitted from the recording if you would wish to. But I think that's it really. It's try and make the evening go as inviting as possible. And our speakers, tonight's guest speakers, are Simon Ballsby from Talksworks, Rupert Cox from Farmer Rail Days, and Lindsay Derbyshire from Rabbi. I will leave it to each of those to give an introduction about what they do and the information that they have to share with us. Okay, Simon, if you're available and ready to share your screen, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. And thank you very much. Yes. So, good evening, everyone. And I'm Simon Blasby, and I'm from here from Talkworks. And Talkworks is actually part of a national um, uh, framework of organisations across England and Wales that provide talking therapies for people with anxiety and depression. So the overall national name of the programme is the NHS Talking Therapies for Anxiety and Depression, and we are the Devon representative of that. And I'll talk a little bit more as we go along about the rest of the Southwest Peninsula. So I've got a few slides to just to sort of structure what I was going to be saying this evening. So I will just share those. Oops. Hello. That has caused. Let me just see if that. Can people see? Yes, it's working,
Yeah.
isn't it? Right.
Yeah, all good.
And I think you're getting the whole thing rather than getting onto presentation mode. So if I just move to slideshow mode, are you still there? Because I've now lost sight of you guys.
Yeah, we're still here.
You're still there,
Yeah,
and
we
you
can
can now
see you.
You can now see one slide. That's fantastic, and you can still see me. Okay, so mustn't pick my nose. Okay,
We can still see all of your slides. Actually, is that what everyone else can see?
Right.
It might be that I'm a bit
I
delayed.
just thought it would be nice, if not that there's any problem in you seeing all the slides. We're going to get to all of them eventually. But the idea, if we're going to try and be professional, is let me stop sharing for a second and let's try and reshare. This is working not in the way that I'm quite used to.
Oh, I shouldn't worry. Don't worry.
Right,
That's brilliant.
Should do it. Okay, let me just see if I can get you guys back. So I can, yay, there we go. So now you've got one slide and I can see you and hopefully you can see me still. So over the next sort of 10, 12, 15 minutes, what I'm going, hang on a minute. We're not moving through the slides in the way I thought. Sorry, this is quite, yeah, this is really different to how this works usually. Anybody give any advice here? Because
you're trying to progress to the next slide of your presentation.
Yeah. So when I try and move through the slides, it's
you on PowerPoint,
Oh,
Simon?
here we go.
Oh,
there we go.
There you go.
We've done it. Sorry. I'll be talking a little bit more about TalkWorks, providing a little bit more explanation for those interested about what is cognitive behavioral therapy, who we see and what is our remit, and perhaps also what falls outside it. And then talking a little bit more about the care pathways in a bit more detail. So, mental health in the agricultural sector. Now, it's fair to say, I mean, we do not have a different offer for people working in the agricultural and rural sectors, but we are very equally all very aware of the problems which rural workers and agricultural workers face. It's quite interesting statistic there on the slide. Hopefully you can see that 95% of young farmers say poor mental health is the biggest hidden danger in farming today. Can you see that quote, by the way? Because I've got it on one screen and not on the other. I can say it anyway. It's weird how the text is disappearing. Anyway, and we recognise that farmers particularly face significant financial pressures. Also sort of issues, current affair issues like Brexit, climate change have all impacted upon the agricultural sector. And at the same time, whilst facing those pressures, at the same time, farmers are disproportionately isolated, and there is also mental health stigma, as there is throughout society, but perhaps it's that little bit stronger in rural communities. So in that context then, there we go, there's the text. Right, okay. What is TalkWorks? Well, we are a free and confidential service provided by the NHS for people aged 18 plus across Devon, excluding Plymouth. We'll talk about Plymouth a bit in a minute. And we offer evidence-based treatments for the treatment of primarily for anxiety and depression. The sessions that we offer are actually these days, the majority are probably remote, so that is to say by telephone or video. But for those who wish to be seen face-to-face, we work in lots of community settings. And we also work in partnership with other third sector organisations. And we have a range of therapy options. It's not a case of one size fits all. There are a range of options, which we'll talk a bit more about in a minute. But perhaps one of the key messages for tonight is that anybody can self-refer. Around about 90% of people who come to TalkWorks are self-referred, and so there is no need to see a doctor first. You just ring us up or use our website and fill in the self-referral form. So as I say, I was just going to mention our sister services across other parts of the Southwest. NHS Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly Talking Therapies. Plymouth's service is provided by a non-NHS organisation called Live Well Southwest. And then going eastwards, Somerset's is provided by NHS Somerset Talking Therapies. The idea was to try and standardise the names as much as possible. But Dorset's, where I used to work, is called Steps to Wellbeing, and they cover Southampton as well. And so that way you can see all five. There is national coverage. Wherever somebody is, there will be an NHS Talking Therapy service for them. So previously known as IAPT, hopefully we're moving away from that term. Originally, when we were first commissioned by the government about 15 years ago, the idea is it was improving the access to psychological therapy. We hope we've now done that over the last 15 years. So a name change took place last year. And as I say, we're offering a range of different treatments for adults aged over 18. So it's about helping to get you back on track. If you've been experiencing depression, anxiety, or poor mental health, it's about trying to help find well-being and recovery and change. It's not just about talking. It is about trying to make an intervention using talking therapies to help you feel better. The therapists are trained to listen carefully to what has been going on for you and how you're feeling, and then to work in collaboration, working with you to help you feel more like yourself again. Most of our treatments are focused on cognitive behavioral therapy. We'll talk more about that in a second. And the process starts with an assessment. So after making contact initially, the first thing to expect within 2 weeks is that you'll get an appointment to speak to, usually by phone, one of our psychological wellbeing practitioners, and that assessment will take about 45 minutes and cover a wide range of aspects of life to get an idea of which care pathway would best help you. So those are the key facts about the service. If you are interested in sort of getting into a little bit more detail, that's what we cover in this part. So depression is a term that probably we all use in conversation. Sometimes perhaps it's misused in conversation to refer to just feeling a bit low. Clinical depression is experiencing these symptoms for a period of at least 2 weeks. So a sustained period, and indeed many people have experienced them for a lot longer. And depression doesn't discriminate in any way. It can affect people, men, women, all age groups, different occupational groups. And another very common problem that we work with is generalized anxiety disorder. And I think that's its sort of clinical name, really in everyday language, a problematical level of worrying characterized by feeling nervous and on edge, excessive worry about a range of different things. That is to say, not just worrying about one thing, that's probably a problem that needs to be fixed. But if somebody's worrying about a whole range of different things, then that might be generalized anxiety disorder. So this inability to stop and control worrying and trouble relaxing, catastrophic thinking, and trouble managing uncertainty and a sense of dread or fear that something awful may happen. So how do we begin to tackle these things? We use cognitive behavioral therapy. Well, what is cognitive behavioral therapy? Well, cognitions is a psychologist's word for thoughts, the thoughts and beliefs that are in everyone's minds. And so what we aim to do is to try and help people to identify those thoughts, and that in itself can help begin to unpack them. And secondly, to challenge them. Behaviors simply means what we do. And so in the behavioral aspect, we're looking to try and we identify there's a strong relationship between what people do and how they feel. So we're aiming to change what people do, to challenge the way people think, and thereby to achieve therapy, to achieve emotional change. And this next slide really says much the same thing in a diagram, because we use these diagrams to call them formulations a lot. Essentially, the pinky orangey circle at the bottom, symptoms, this usually refers to emotional symptoms particularly, but it might refer to physical ones too. And the insight of CBT is that although it might be hard to change emotions directly, we have two important levers, our behaviors and our thoughts. And by challenging our thoughts and changing our behaviors, we have two powerful levers to achieve positive change towards well-being in our emotional state. And that is the powerful insight of CBT. So it works by facilitating change and breaking the cycle. In a way, you could think of it like a little bit of coaching. It's about giving the client brings some expertise on themselves, the clinician brings a little bit of expertise on CBT, and together you're working in collaboration towards achieving change. And the focus is very much on the here and now and the future. There is some acknowledgement of the past and sometimes the distant past, but it is a therapy that's focused very much on what happened last week and how next week is going to be a little bit different. So here's a long list of all the things that we do cover. As you can see, it is quite a wide range of things. But depression probably occupies about 50% of our cases. And then the anxiety conditions are much of the remainder. One of the things we offer in Devon, which is not offered in the other areas, we've sort of got a bit of a speciality in, you could say, is prolonged grief disorder. That is a fairly new innovation. It's a new type of therapy, prolonged grief disorder therapy. It's proved very effective, but that is a solely a Devon innovation. Otherwise, what I've been saying really would be fairly common for the other 4 services that I talked about earlier. When might TalkWorks work? Well, when might talking therapy intervention be useful? Well, it's important to have a clear therapeutic goal to work towards. As I mentioned earlier, this is not just about offloading. This is not just about having just the listener. This is about being focused on change. So it's important to have some goals which would be established with one's therapist, where you would say, okay, here's your problem statement. When this happens, I feel this and I do this. And by the end of therapy, when this happens, I would like to think like this, do this, and feel like that. So it's laid out in those CBT terms of how change will be measured. What is it the journey you want to go on? You can't set out on a journey and be sure of your destination unless you've decided what your desired destination is. It's also important that people who are working in TalkWorks are able to manage their own safety and agree to a meaningful risk management plan, because there are weights, there are waiting lists, and there are gaps between we would normally be seen weekly or fortnightly. So it's important that people are able to stay safe between appointments. And so we would not be able to see somebody who had recently been in crisis, by which we might mean, very sadly, a recent suicide attempt or something like that. People need to feel that now is the right time and that their circumstances are broadly stable. In other words, there's perhaps indicators that things are not stable. For example, might be using drugs, so no current significant substance or alcohol misuse, and personal responsibility for change, and perhaps an understanding or belief that psychological approaches could be helpful. So the model that we work within is part of what's called a stepped care model. And in fact, within the mental health within the NHS, we see that there are actually 5 steps. The 5th isn't here. But step 1 would be self-help and would be accessing the advice of generalists like the GP and other people in primary care. We provide interventions at step 2 and at step 3. So step 2 is with our psychological wellbeing practitioners, and is usually structured, often guided self-help, whilst work at step 3 is formulation driven. So that is to say, therapist and client work together with a longer period of time and longer sessions to develop an individualized roadmap. You showed you those 3 circles earlier. They will be tailored to the individual, whilst step 4, as I say, will be outside TalkWorks. That will be secondary care. So at step 2, psychological wellbeing practitioners offer individualized support and group support, and they also offer computerized CBT courses and signposting. Usually the individual work is 6 sessions of up to 30 minutes. And it's usually over the phone, but it can be by video call or face-to-face. And it would involve regular home practice and support to engage with the materials. And that's useful and helpful, particularly for people with a more mild end of the spectrum of problems. The computerized CBT program is called SilverCloud. It's great for really busy people who may not be only able to engage with the material at times outside sort of normal office hours. And people can continue to go back to it up to a year after they've completed treatment. So you get a license to use it effectively, and you can keep dipping back to it, which makes it a very helpful and evidence-based technique tool. We also run some workshops. That is a matter. These are psychoeducational workshops. We really largely just turn up and listen, but they are really, really helpful. Particularly popular the sleep one, which is a direct access one. You don't need an assessment for that, and also the work with long-term health conditions. At step 3 is our high-intensity therapy. So this is characterized by the individualized formulation. And here's a little, it's phased out here on the slide, but this is an example of what an individualized formulation might look like. The sessions are typically an hour long and would be normally up to 12 sessions, but we can offer, if the need is there, longer courses of therapy too, but it's still short-term, time-limited therapy. And it's ideally face-to-face, but it can also be offered by video. So not all our work is CBT, but probably about 80% of it is. But a smaller proportion is we also offer these other therapies. So counselling for depression perhaps is particularly worth mentioning, which is where there is more of emphasis on the relationship between the client and the counsellor, and there is more emphasis on the past rather than the present. Interpersonal psychotherapy, called IPT, looks at relationships. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is particularly good at relapse prevention in the treatment of depression, and also in where recurrent depression that keeps coming and then going away again. Narrative exposure therapy is used in trauma, We also have employment advisors. So we have a big team of employment advisors if people are struggling with their employer. EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprogramming. It's a physical therapy to help soothe people who have experienced trauma. Things that we don't cover are the more complex presentations. So essentially, this is anybody who's already seeing a psychiatrist or who's open to secondary care. It would also include conditions like those listed here: psychosis, personality disorder, or mood swing disorders. And it would also include eating disorders where there was a risk of severe weight loss, so anorexia and things like that. By and large, we don't deal with relationship difficulties, and we are unable to help people where the primary issue is a domestic violence situation, and people who are dependent on drugs or alcohol. If there is a more complex presentation, or if there are other issues in the background, then we would encourage people to get a referral. Then alongside our core work, we then have a team, or two teams, in fact, one in the north, one in the south of Devon, helping people who have a long-term physical health problem alongside depression and anxiety. And those sorts of things might be things like coronary obstructive pulmonary disease, epilepsy, or irritable bowel syndrome, but really any condition that doesn't go away, that is a long-term physical condition. And the reason for having a separate team is that mental health problems are more common in people with long-term conditions, and they tend not to resolve as quickly and to have more complications, and that actually providing an effective treatment for the mental health problem can also lead to improvements in outcomes for the physical health problem. And because there is a close relationship between the mind and the body. The mind and the body are closely linked to each other and affect each other. So if we're feeling, for an example of that would be if we're feeling down and experiencing depression, then we're more likely to experience pain. So trials show that when the same stimulus is applied, depressed people rate their pain as more severe than people who are not depressed. In the same way, perhaps the management, for example, of a long-term condition like diabetes. If people are very anxious about their diabetes, they tend not to manage it as well as people who feel more confident about that. So I mentioned at the beginning, the key message, the key takeaway really is that we are a self-access service, and this is our phone number and our website. Simply Google TalkWorks and you will find us. If you're in other areas, just Google NHS Talking Therapies and the name of your county or local authority, and then just fill in all the services across the Southwest have self-referral forms. If there's a crisis or an emergency, a fairly recent change now is that 111 is the place to go for all requirements for urgent mental health care that fall short of an emergency, including mental health support. So call 111, and the Samaritans number, it's worth always holding that in one's head, 116123. Mental Health Matters Devon, their number is on the slide too. So key takeaways from this little guide to NHS Talking Therapies. We're here to help all adults over the age of 18 living in Devon, excluding Plymouth, but there is coverage for all parts of England and Wales. Our aim is to give the tools and techniques needed to improve mental and physical well-being. You can self-refer, there's no need to see a GP first. We have quite short waiting times, and we can see people outside the 9 to 5. We have 8 a.m. appointments. We have appointments between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. Monday to Thursday evening. We don't work on Friday evening. We don't currently work at weekends. But as I say, so there are evening appointments Monday to Thursday and early morning appointments all 5 days of the working week. And we have a variety of care pathway options. And we are an NHS service, and we are free. A surprising number of people say, how much do I have to pay? It is all free at the point of delivery. And there are social media feeds. So thank you very much for listening and coming along tonight, or watching at a later date. I'm happy to take any questions.
Oh, I think Luke's put his hand up. Thank you, Simon. I think we might have a question.
Yeah, no, it's great, Simon. Very informative, and thank you very much for sharing all that. I think you've kind of hit this one, but you've mentioned there's people who you can't support. In the event that someone does call in and they're not eligible for your support, are you able to signpost them through to relevant support service?
Yes. We would, their case would be reviewed by our central duty team, and they would then, if there was an element of sort of crisis around, they would be contacting the first response service, the FRS, which is what lies behind that 111 number. So as professionals, we have a quicker way into the FRS, and that would be a way of them getting more urgent help. Some things, less urgent things, we would encourage people to self-refer. So we might signpost people to other services. But if there was an element of crisis or urgency about it, then we would be moving people on.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Simon. I've just got a couple of questions, actually, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Sure.
I just wondered, with regards to referral process, I know it has to be a self-refer. Can it be, like a close family member, or does it have to be the actual person that has to refer themselves? I'm just thinking because a lot of times, we've dealt with quite recently a lot of like farmers' wives, maybe, or children that are concerned about their family member, and I didn't know if it has to be that individual.
Yeah, well, the first thing to say is we do accept professional referrals as well as,
Okay.
although the majority of people self-refer,
Yeah.
professionals, we do accept and welcome, particularly more complex cases, professional referrals. There is, because of patient confidentiality, we would, and it's important that people have, one of the things we were saying about when is the time right to engage with TalkWorks or NHS
Yeah.
talking therapists. And part of that is feeling motivated and feeling that the person wants to change and engage in change. And actually, talking therapy is not likely to be effective if somebody has been pushed and cajoled into
I
therapy,
understand.
no matter how much how much benign the concern of the family member might be. It's not going to be effective, and indeed, people are likely to effectively, metaphorically, go into reverse if they feel that they are being manoeuvred into accepting therapy. So, although we can hear and accept information from people who may know the person we're seeing, we never would give any information out. We're a confidential service. So we wouldn't give information out to somebody who wasn't another professional directly involved in the care within the NHS. And so effectively, the short answer is no. So
Okay.
a non-professional, we wouldn't accept a referral for somebody from a non-professional concerned family member. We would encourage that person to go and talk to the person they're concerned about and get them to refer themselves in.
I understand. No, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, because sometimes you do get people, I would imagine, that want to, like you said, maybe push the individual into getting that support. And like you said, they're probably just, maybe if they haven't, they're just not quite ready for the engagement of what's available to them. Also, I was just wondering, when somebody is supporting somebody in crisis, or supporting somebody who's having, in quite severe poor mental health, is TalkWorks there for them as well? Or do you know what I mean? Like the kind of individual that's maybe struggling with kind of giving that additional care to that person who is, having poor mental health. Would the service be available to them too?
Um, with their own episode of care, yes. So if they
Yeah.
referred themselves in,
Yeah.
if they are struggling with something that is it falls within our remit, then each individual person can come in and get and can get support. It wouldn't be done as a network thing. Each person is seen as an individual, but we
Yeah.
acknowledge that where people have particular caring responsibilities, then we would obviously take note of that.
Okay, I really appreciate your time, Simon. Thank you ever so much for speaking this evening and sharing all of that information. It is really, really helpful. You are very welcome to stay for the rest of the evening and listen to Rupert and Lindsay as well if you'd like to. But I appreciate as well, as it's an evening and you might have other things to do, we won't be offended if you need to shoot off. So either is fine. But thank you so
If
much.
you'll forgive me, I will be shooting off, but it's been a pleasure joining you. Thank you for the
It's really
invitation
kind
to
of
speak.
you. Lovely to meet you. Thanks ever so much,
Take care.
Simon.
All the
Thank
best.
you, Simon.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay. Oh, and right in the middle of my screen is Rupert ready. And if you're happy, Rupert, I think you're on mute from looking, so you might want to just unmute before you start.
Yeah, I'm now alive. I'm now alive and kicking.
Brilliant.
I'm going to share actually the Farmerado's website and talk you through it. Can you see our webpage that says
I
Farmerado's and about
Yeah,
us?
I can. That's
Yep,
brilliant.
can
Yeah.
see that.
Okay, so by way of introduction to everybody, my name is Rupert Cox and I'm the coordinator of Farmerado's. And Farmerado's, what on earth is that? I hear you say. Well, Farmerado's is a social movement whose role is to get farmers talking to each other. Um, so you will hear from both from Lindsay and the previous speaker about some solutions. What we try and do is not find solutions. We don't try and fix problems, but we try and help farmers to articulate how they're feeling to each other or to us as Farmerado's volunteers. And just by doing that can take the heat and the emotion out of some of the challenges they face. Give you an example. I've been going to markets throughout the winter. Well, it started raining in early October and it didn't finish till the end of April. So it didn't matter what the price of lamb or the price of beef was. Farming wasn't great fun with the rain continually falling. Crops weren't planted, crops weren't harvested. So having an opportunity together to sort of uh, talk about some of the issues that you face certainly helps farmers to just understand they're not alone and dilutes to some extent some of their challenges. So as this part of the website says, Farmerados don't fix or try to solve. We just provide a friendly, supportive space to share and connect with others in the same boat. It sounds simple, and to some extent it is. So where did we come up with the idea? Well, Becky Wright, our founder, set up the Somerset Mental Health in Agriculture group way back in 2017, and I was involved with that, wearing a slightly different hat. And since then, the program has developed with a number of videos that are now on this website that you see in front of you, and our information Z cards, which I'll show you a little bit later on. But we came out of a concept from a national organization called Camerados. So we set up what we call farmhouse kitchen tables. Everyone knows if you go into a farmhouse, there's a kitchen table, usually looks a bit disheveled. You sit down, someone puts the kettle on, you have a cup of tea, there's a bit of cake or a chocolate biscuit, and you can just relax and express what you're thinking. Farmerados have done this since 2015 in what they call their pop-up living rooms, and they now have 200 sites across the whole country. So we have tried this, and this is we're 18 months through a 2-year project to encourage farmers to have that same mentality. But as the problem, the last paragraph on this part of the page says, farmers are very proud and strong. So talking about problems doesn't come easy. But the more that we can all talk about our problems, actually a problem shared is a problem halved very often. So our mission is to cultivate communities where farmers can share the load, learn from others, and leave feeling a little lighter. So from a mental health perspective, you would probably describe us, or I would try and describe us, we are not a mental health support organization. We want to talk to farmers before they start to feel they've got poor mental health. This then takes the pressure off NHS services. It takes the pressure off the likes of Rabbi, who we're here in a moment, and FCN, another farmer support group. Because if we can just get farmers to a position where they don't feel as if everything is too much for them, then we've certainly achieved. So the Camarados principles are the same 6 principles we work by. And some of them are a little bit illogical, some are a little bit humorous, some of them actually are very important. So mixing with people who are not like you and having conversations with people that are not like you is really important. Now, it's actually quite difficult for farmers because what's the old adage? Birds of a feather flock together. But if you can actually speak to someone that's not like you, has a different career, different gender, different sexual orientation, different racial background, whatever, it puts a completely different complexion on how we look and feel. And in farming terms, it might be pig farmers talking to a sheep farmer or an arable farmer or potatoes, however. Don't just be happy to mix with people that are not like you. The cow stuck on the gate and asking someone who's struggling to help you does seem very illogical. But if someone is feeling a little bit vulnerable and they feel a little bit lost, if you give them a little job to do, even if it's as simple as, can you put the kettle on and make another pot of tea, please? They instantly feel a little bit more valued than they did. Somebody needs them, somebody wants them just to do a simple little role. It sounds illogical. You'd think someone that's struggling, you need to help them. But if you can flip it on its head and say, actually, just put the kettle on. Can you just move this furniture around for me? Can you just put this table up? Just helping people to do this is really important. No fixing, just being alongside. We're in a society at the moment, and I would say the NHS feels its job is to fix people. We don't fix people. We just come alongside and we talk about what they want to talk about. We may throw a few pebbles in the pond of the conversation to help them think slightly differently, but we don't fix. We signpost, and I'll come to that bit towards the end, but we never say, oh, if I were you, I'd do X, Y, and Z. That's not what you want to hear if you're not feeling great. You want someone to understand, to have a level of empathy for how you're feeling. And you might say, yeah, I've had a bit of that in my time, and it's not great, is it? But you'll find over time you might feel better if you do X, Y, and Z. That's not fixing, that's having a conversation you would normally have. Now, interestingly, in a day of the general election, it's okay to disagree respectfully. Now, this is a very big societal shift that's happened in the last 20 years when we can't say exactly what we're thinking through fear of upsetting somebody. And I think it's really important that we all are allowed to express how we're feeling respectfully. And the last word is very important. Farmers feel a bit beaten up sometimes. They feel the world is against them. They hear a very noisy minority, whether that is in veganism or the urban-rural clash. You can discuss things, but respectfully. Even when you're feeling a bit low, it's okay to laugh and to relax, because a smile is worth 100 frowns. So not being frightened of relaxing, not being frightened of having a giggle about the simplest things in life. And the last one, it's okay to feel rubbish sometimes. Now, the big crunch here is if somebody is feeling rubbish all the time, that is not good. But it's okay if we feel rubbish sometimes. And certainly coming back to the weather that we had in the winter, that was really getting to farmers. They were starting to feel rubbish all the time. But by speaking to other people that are also feeling rubbish, you go, okay, so it's not just me then. The sun will come out eventually, we hope. So those are the 6 principles that are Camarados principles. If you find our website on farmerados.org, in behind these there's more detail, but I don't fancy going into that in a lot of detail in this webinar. I prefer to direct you to our website. So how are we funded? Well, Open Mental Health is a collaboration of Somerset mental health organisations driven through the NHS, but with a whole range of other funders who've put their money into a pot and have then reinvested that funds into a whole range of mental health support organisations. Now, it was a real uh, punt to invest in Farmerados because we are not a mental health organisation. But if we can stop people from getting poor mental health, that is a real positive, and that is certainly seen by Open Mental Health. It's a very positive. Love Community are a community interest company that is run by Becky Wright that I talked about a little earlier. The funding has gone through from Open Mental Health to Love Community and then into our pot. We have not been a constituted organisation. We're just a project of Open Mental Health managed by Love Community. I said that we're 18 months into a 2-year project. We hope that in the next few months, we'll have a bit of clearer direction of where we're going. So I'm going to share a few photographs with you. Can you see on screen the top left-hand corner, your active concern can make all the difference? Can you see that or not?
Can't
No,
see anything just yet,
no, I don't
Rupert.
think I can. No, it
Fine.
flicked on for a second. There was a couple of different photos a second ago, and then it. Oh, there we are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, I've got to get it on. I've got 2 screens. I've got it on the right screen. So this, I'm sorry, we lose a bit of resolution here. Just imagine a line right the way down through the middle there. This is a Z card that opens up, and if you fold it up small, that is the front page there. And it is about a business card size. And the reason it's this size is one thing that Farmerados doesn't do is get people to write on lots of paper, to tell us who they are, to official referrals to whichever agency. We're very low key, very subtle. And this thing that's the size of a business card really helps people discreetly understand the problems and where to go to find help. So we send out these Z cards to a whole load of agencies, to intermediaries, to the markets, to wherever we choose to go. And we've lost a little bit of the 4 referrals that we have are to FCN, to RABI, to Open Mental Health, and to the Samaritans. Now, in Somerset, you can't see it, but Open Mental Health have a 24-hour, 7 days a week hotline. So what you heard from Devon, that actually it's only 9 to 5 weekdays, this is available all the time, as are, of course, FCN and RABI. So this is our only direction of referral for those sort of issues. Now then, I want to show you a couple of other pictures. Okay. Can you see this ripple impact map?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see that.
So we were operating for a year, and fundamentally what we do, we have a regular monthly pitch at Sedgemoor Market on the 3rd Saturday of the month. We go to Frome Market on the 1st Wednesday of the month. We go to Cutcombe probably quarterly, but we go to some agricultural shows and other agricultural events. So this exercise that we carried out in early 2024 really helped us identify the ripple of Farmerados through 2023. There's a little key up here that talks about individual impacts, how many individual farmers we impacted. where we manage to impact organizations, and then the wider community. So you've sort of got to follow these codes around here. Now, I won't go into this in a huge amount of detail. It's on our website for those that are interested, but it was a fascinating exercise to say, well, where did you start and what are you? And then where have you had the most impact? So during 2023, we had over 500 conversations with farmers, their family, their workers. Now, not all 500 were in need of our direct support, but they might have known somebody that was, or it might have been them, or it might have been someone they lived with. And just being able to have a conversation at Sedgemoor Market, for instance, where we put up, and I've got a couple of pictures in a minute, where we put up this farmhouse kitchen table just for a chat. But as we see here, we've been to Sedgemoor, Frome, the Dairy Show, various networking events, Bridgewater Ploughing Match. We got various bits of merchandise. Here's our Z cards. 300 packs have been posted out. Over 5,000 individual leaflets have gone out across the county. This is quite interesting here. We also give them out. One of the other projects I work on is the Future Farm Resilience Program. And we dish out these little Z cards at the workshops that we deliver in Somerset and Dorset. They don't all get taken, but they're there for farmers to take home should they wish. Because the synergy of the two projects, Farmerados and Future Farm Resilience, is really a natural bedfellow, because farmers are coming to our workshops to try and understand what farming looks like when their BPS is gone, and that can have a major impact on their mental well-being. Because for some farmers, the BPS that's disappearing has been their profitability. So they're feeling slightly fragile anyway. So being able to tap into something like Farmerados or just receiving one of our Z cards is really important. Now, I said we don't fix people, but we know people that can. So down here, we do direct referrals to FCN. We do have conversations, and I've had conversations with Lindsay at Rabby, and I've met Zoe a couple of times at Rabby to work out how we can work more closely together. And of course, through our funder, Open Mental Health. So you can see how we've managed to try and not just feel that we're pouring cups of tea for farmers, but how else can we get our message out there? Rural crime team in Somerset got really good relationship with these fellas, because they're often going on farms where theft has occurred, arson might have occurred, outbreak of animal disease might have occurred, all times when farmers are feeling a little bit fragile. So if they've got a Z card with them, then they've got some information and somewhere to go. So we're starting to use that resource through other agencies and intermediaries to get to our farmers. Lastly, I wanted to touch on this little bit at the top here. This isn't an exhaustive list, but these are the challenges that a lot of farmers were facing in 2023. I've talked about weather. Farm payments I've talked about already, really, through the FFR program. Managing debt, either their own debt or people owing them money. Succession planning, big issue for farmers, and having a chat to somebody, and I'm both lucky and unlucky. My father passed away, and I understand succession planning, costs of managing your farm, and other family issues. Members of the family perhaps not getting on. So these are the issues that have come forward to us. They're not necessarily the issues that we've referred down here, because we're not fixers. We know all of the volunteers have done the mental health first aid course. And as you learn on that course, if you're a physical first aider, you get someone as close to the ambulance as you can. When they're in the ambulance, somebody else deals with them. It's the same with mental health. For us as first aiders, if we feel it's not within our remit to be able to support this person, we need to refer them to people that we know that can. But I thought you'd find that just quite useful. It's quite a useful exercise for any organization to go through, because when you first do it, it can be quite striking that how far you've actually come in quite a short space of time. So this is myself, and actually that's my wife with me, down at Dunster Show. So West Somerset is, as many of you will know, it's quite a tight community. They're passionate about what they do in and around Exmoor. It's a great show, but on that day, just making tea, having a game of Jenga, having a game of Connect Four, we had 35 meaningful conversations with farmers and people associated with farming. Normally, on a normal day, we might have 20 or so meaningful conversations. So we were absolutely flabbergasted how much traction that we actually got at that particular event. And likewise at the dairy show, we had over 70 calls, 70 meaningful conversations. And sometimes things have happened in a farmer's life that they've never actually shared their feelings with other people, because they are the head of the household. They have to stay strong. And we witness farmers who might have lost a child, either very young or in their teens, who they haven't had time to grieve for. We've also met a farmer who had quite a messy divorce, and his wife turned his children and grandchildren against him, and he's got 8 grandchildren that he's never met. Those conversations are really difficult, but actually by having a conversation and allowing those to be expressed, that fellow went away from us. We hadn't solved any problems at all as such, except giving him the chance to speak. We don't write his name down. We don't refer him directly to somebody. We just give him a Z card and said, there may be something in that Z card that you find useful. So that's sort of me. It's very much a whistle-stop tour of what we're about. I will stop sharing now, and I'm happy to take any questions that anybody may have.
Oh, that's brilliant. Thanks, Rupert. There's nothing in the chat, but I don't know if anybody on the call has any questions.
Yeah,
No. Oh, Luke, there we go.
There we go. I'll pipe up. I was trying to find my Farmarado's cards. I've got a few that you gave me, Rupert, but I seem to have given them all out because they are really great resources. And it saves having quite a few flyers and just giving out a little card. So yeah, fits in your wallet, which is great. My question is, I live close to the border in Somerset, but I live in Devon, and I think what you're doing, the work's fantastic in Somerset. Do you think there's any opportunity that, obviously with what you're doing, you've been in part of launching Farmarados, and obviously you're in this project phase where things are, who knows what could come, but would you, it doesn't seem as though it's limited to Somerset. I think the work you're doing ought to be recognised on a wider scale, and I think reproducing it's going to be very difficult in a sense, but do you think there's any scope for being able to bring this work you're doing across the Southwest perhaps?
Yes, we were unlucky that we applied actually to DEFRA, who had a funding pot for farmer mental health and well-being about 3 months ago, and we applied to do just that, but missed out by a handful of procurement points, or however they do it, which was disappointing. The website is deliberately non-geographic. There is reference to Somerset, but it isn't sold as a Somerset organisation. and certainly our executive committee are looking at ways of setting ourselves up as a standalone organization, probably a charity, and then we can generate hopefully some grant applications out of that, which allows us to go across the whole of the Southwest. What it requires is, at the moment, we've got a number of people that said they would volunteer, but if you're in work, giving up a Wednesday morning to sit with me at Froome Market or a Saturday down at Sedgemoor, or if we went to Exeter on a Friday, um, it's quite difficult to get the volunteers. And I know both FCM and RABI are struggling with that as well. It's just, it's a big problem. So it's relied on me, and I have a contract for a day a week until the end of January. We could and should be able to run it more with volunteers if we can find them, and therefore you can run it on less of a budget. To answer your question, I'd love it to go across the Southwest. I'll tell you what the weakness of the business model is. We go to where the farmers sort of already, we go to markets, ploughing matches, ag shows, those sort of things. The people that probably need the chat that we can offer them don't get out much. They're down a farm track. They're very hard to find. And I know in community development speak, the hard to reach parts of our community is where there is the most challenges with mental health. And that's not just in farming, but in other rural areas. So to answer your question, yep, we'd love to go far and wide. It's all a question of funding.
Thank you, Rupert. I also just wanted to echo how good those Z cards are. I have only last week just had a request from, I did a talk for the Rural Crime Police in Devon and Cornwall, and they asked me to forward the Z cards to the different departments for them. So I've posted off a load of those to all the different police, rural officers, and also all the that's the one, yeah, and all the Devon and Somerset Animal Plant Health Agency vets have them as well now. So they've been nothing but supportive to all of us. So we all of us as trading standards officers have them in our pockets and have a couple spare ones that we can leave when we do farm visits. And I was also just wanted to sort of make a comment about the farmhouse kitchen table. And as a trading standards officer, I spend an awful lot of time sat at a farmhouse kitchen table and of different descriptions. And I would say definitely that they feel more comfortable when we're sat down. They've offered me a cup of tea and we're having a chat about stuff, and they are definitely more likely to open up to me then. And obviously I can offer some of the support services that are out there. Telling them about the FFR program and different things. So I've learned quite a lot, and I think it's helped me do my job by doing that mental health first aid course, and also, just those key little bits of information from you guys that have been really helpful. And obviously, we've had a lot of information from Becky Wright as well, so it's all really, really good stuff. And yeah, the only other thing I think I had one more question was about your volunteers actually, and how many you have on your books at Farmerados, and like Lou said, whether there was any way that we could help you to kind of spread the word in that sense, to try and get it to be stretched further.
We've got enough volunteers or people that say they will help. We've got a shortage of those volunteers who actually do help.
Yes.
And there is a big difference.
Yeah.
So we've probably got half a dozen that I can call on quite a regular basis. But of the 19, I think it's 19 or 20 that have said, yeah, I'll volunteer. It's harder to get them to, oh, well, I can't,
Yeah.
I've got children to look after today, or I'm working on a Wednesday, or, I've got to go off and do something else, or I'm on holiday. And we all have busy lives. So I'm just giving examples. I'm not giving critical judgment. And I think as a society, there is quite a lot of volunteering opportunities. And because there are so many organizations that need volunteers, sometimes it's quite difficult to get enough spread across all the projects that need
Yeah,
supporting.
it's so hard, isn't it?
Mm.
I've just noticed actually, Rupert, we've got somebody else joined this evening called Robin Horton, and he's got his hand up. So I don't know have you unmuted yourself, Robin? Are you okay to talk?
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Apologies for joining late.
Don't worry, it's
Combination of
fine.
getting in late, apologies for getting in late, and temporarily forgetting about it.
It's
I
fine.
was just going to mention, Rupert probably knows this, but the Somerset Council has invested in a piece of software called, I think it's called Assemble, and they provide a service to third sector organisations to advertise your service and try and drum up volunteers for you. Um, so they basically, their vision is to hold effectively the database of volunteers in Somerset and then provide a portal where people kind of register their volunteering opportunity on it, and you can sort of see what's available in your area and pick and go and volunteer. So, and as far as I know, it's completely free. You just need to contact Somerset Council and get your thing on there.
I think it's done through the community council, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
And
know
the community
how.
council and Spark, I think that
Yeah,
they
probably through
drive that.
Spark.
Yeah,
Yeah, probably through Spark. But I think
yeah.
it's quite, if you go on there, it's quite a good portal, and they've got like a database of charities you can go and volunteer for. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just another place you can kind of advertise and try and get volunteers.
What we're trying to do, and this is get support from the agricultural intermediaries. I will say the accountants and lawyers as examples, who often encourage their staff to take volunteer days. We've got a member of staff, and she works for HSBC and's been there for nearly 30 odd years. She gives us a few days. Well, HSBC give us a couple of days of her time through
Oh.
volunteering days that employers encourage their staff to do. And I think that will be a very good tactic for us.
That's brilliant. Thank you both. And just Lindsay's kindly shared in the chat as well that the Devon's equivalent to Spark, I think, is Devon Connect. So that'll be helpful for people. Yeah, it's annoying when you've got that Devon Somerset border, but it is really important to know sort of the names and the key sort of terms for the different counties, really. That's brilliant. Has anybody else got any other questions? I think we're all done, Rupert. Thank you. You're very
Thank you.
welcome. As I said to Simon, you're very welcome to stay for Lindsay's presentation and chat if you can. But I also appreciate if you want to grab a bit of your evening as well. So I do really appreciate your giving up your time. So thank you.
I will stay and listen to Lindsay. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Ah, that's so kind. Well, Lindsay, if you're ready and you're happy to.
Nikki, I will just interrupt.
Yeah, of course.
Robin's got his hand up. I
No,
didn't
I
know
think that was from. I think that was from before. I might.
Oh, is it? I didn't know whether it's still staying
Oh,
up.
do you have anything else, Robin, you wanted to ask?
No, total apologies. That's a
Oh, that's
legacy
fine.
Oh, my bad,
So
Robin.
that's
Thank
all
you.
right. No, it's always good to check, Luke, because I may have missed that. So thank you. Okay, Lindsay, over to you. Thank you.
Hi, so bear with me because I'm wearing someone else's hat this evening.
Don't worry,
So,
just take your time.
so just bear with me whilst the slideshow loads. We want to. Can we see that?
Yes, I can see the screen.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I can see it.
Thank you. So, borrowing someone else's hat. So, I'm Lindsay Derbyshire, so I'm the regional support manager for Devon and the West Somerset area. So, I do that crossover of the boundaries between Devon and sort of the Taunton area postcodes. We have a part-time worker who covers Cornwall now, so we have slightly rejiggled the boundaries. Before we get started, obviously, I'm sure many of you have heard of RABI before, and you're familiar with the services that we offer, hopefully. Sorry, I'm reading off the screen. So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll be answering yes to both of those questions, and you'll understand how RABI may fit into the wider landscape of your profession or job role. So who are RABI? RABI stands for the Royal Agricultural Benevolent Institution, and this year we have been supporting farming people for 164 years. It still amazes and saddens me that so many people out there have little or no knowledge of RABI, and there is support available to people yet to know about. So we work to support farming people across England and Wales primarily, but also give small grants to Northern Ireland. Scotland have their own equivalent called the RSABI, who provide similar services to ourselves, but we are two separate charities. RABI offers financial, practical and emotional support, and we have a 24/7 referral helpline. We offer to support anyone within the farming community. So you don't have to be a farmer. You may be a farm worker, you may be the spouse, children, and those connected to the farming family. All these presentations, you've got lots of buttons to click, haven't you? So I take my hat off to Zoe for doing this normally. So we have a whole host of issues facing farmers in the UK, with many saying that farmers across England and Wales are facing the toughest times in a generation. Some of the issues they're facing are coming off the back of Brexit, with the UK moving away from the EU's Common Agricultural Policy, with a new focus on public money for public goods such as environmental and animal health improvements, labour shortages, with the seasonal worker rules changing. We also have the Russian-Ukraine war, which has led to the steep increases in the cost of essential output, such as energy, fertiliser, feedstuffs for the animals, etc. We also have climate change, which has led to more unpredictable and extreme weather. The 2023-24 winter this year has just been relentless, and as previously Rupert said, many farms have been waterlogged. Some farmers haven't even been able to get their crops in the ground, and those that did have got inches of water on the surface. It's been predicted that the wheat outputs will drop by about 25% this year as a result of the wet conditions. There's also the ageing workforce out there. At the moment, the average working age of a farmer is about 59 years old, and a third of our farmers are aged over 65. So just catching up with the other buttons. So I'm sure many of you are familiar. Back in 2021, RABI commissioned the Big Farming Survey to learn more about what is going on within the farming community and how people are feeling across England and Wales. This survey went out to every farm across England and Wales, and we received over 15,000 responses. The findings of this have not only shaped how we work as a charity, but it's also been used by the NFU to lobby in Parliament to fight for better support for the farmers now and in the future. So, going to share with you a couple of the key findings from the Big Farming Survey. It came back to say 58% of women in farming are experiencing some kind of anxiety. 36% of people within the farming community are probably or possibly depressed, meaning if you're sat here and thought of all the farming people you know, over a third of them are potentially struggling. 52% of people within farming experience pain and discomfort every single day. Not just once a month or once a week, but every day. And obviously that hinders not only your work, but also your emotional health, because you're having to continue working on the farm, whether you're in pain, injured, grieving, rain, snow, sleet, etc. Almost 1 in 5 people know someone who has attempted to take their own life. So there's 5 of us in this meeting today, so quite likely one of us has experienced a conversation with someone feeling that suicidal. The accident rate in farming is 20% higher than all the industry average. And again, sure most of you sitting here today know people who have had a run-in with machinery or been injured by machinery or livestock. Often a major accident can be the start of additional stress and worries on the farm. Let's just go back. It's not clicking through in the right order for me. So an average of 6 factors cause stress within the farming community, on top of the general stress factors such that we all face, regardless of career. You've got your relationships, money, well-being. Farming people also face the additional stress factors such as the bad weather, changes in policies, inspections, and many other variables. So many of the issues facing farmers are interlinked, but we've broken our own support down into 3 key themes: emotional, practical, and financial. A lot of the information that came out of the Big Farming Survey centered around mental health. Prior to the Big Farming Survey, when supporting farming people, we would refer them to their GP if they needed emotional support. However, we are hearing people on waiting lists, trying to access sort of the more intense emotional support that the gentleman from TalkWorks was sort of mentioning, sort of the areas that they would refer onwards with. So in late 2021, RABI launched the first of our mental health services. We got the online click and chat service, which is available for any age. This is where you can go on in real time and chat to a trained professional counsellor about how you are feeling and what is going on. The Samaritans offer something similar. However, the difference is that a lot of our counsellors are from a farming background or have been on agricultural training, so they understand sort of the language and what's going on within the farming calendar year, so people aren't having to over-explain themselves. Second thing that we've launched was our mental health counselling, which within 24 hours of a referral to RABI, the farming person gets a call back to discuss their situation and arrange their first appointment. These appointments can be over the phone, via video chat, face-to-face, depending on what the individual prefers. This service is available for anybody within the farming community with a farming connection over the age of 18. The last and final thing that we offer is mental health training. So it's all well and good having all the fantastic services, but if they're not recognised by people within the farming community, it's knowing how and when to signpost people on. The accredited training, it can be done over a half day, 1 day or 2 day courses. And so far, RABI have trained hundreds of individuals from vets, land agents, auctioneers, volunteers, and even farm owners with their own staff working for them. So when our regional support managers talk to the farming person, they will be able to, this is sort of the part of the job that I do, reading it in someone else's words, it looks completely different. So when our regional support managers speak to the farming person, they will recognise that there will be what benefits they're eligible for, whether that's low income, carers allowance, or any other available benefits. But obviously it is quite a lengthy process. There's always forms and jargon which can take hours to complete. Many people just don't have the time or the capacity or the skill set to complete these forms. So RABI, you know, the likes of myself and my colleagues, we're here to help you make sure that you're getting all the statutory benefits that you are entitled to. And last year alone, we secured over £300,000 in benefits for the farming people we support. We also offer upskill farming by offering funding for training such as HGV licenses, sheep shearing or foot trimming, providing obviously there's not, the farming person is unable to fund it themselves, and the training will help to bring an additional income onto the farm. As I've mentioned before, we've got the 24/7 helpline, which is manned by agricultural trained staff that understands, you know, what the farmers are facing when they first call through to that helpline. We also offer financial support during the hardship, the period of crisis. That's what we've always done, and we will always continue to do. Our financial support is based around household finances only, so the domestic costs. We're unable to fund any business support, such as feed, fuel, and fertilisers. Each case is looked on a case-by-case situation where our support managers will talk with the farming person about all aspects of their lives and put together a case of support for that individual or family. This financial aid can take place in the form of grants in crisis, such as being unable to pay the rent, funding for a relief worker if, for instance, the farmer's had an accident and is unable to work for a period of time. And then we also have our more targeted grants throughout the year, such as the Return to School grant, which keep your eyes peeled. I think something's gone out on social media. Have a look on our Facebook or whichever one you prefer, or our website for more details. And in the past, we've done a winter fuel grant. All these are a really great sort of foot in the door scheme, which helps our farming families to become familiar with our RABI and a household name. And, you know, should the situation arise in the future where they need our support, we're seen as an organisation that's accessible to them. Our referral process is really simple. It's the same helpline number for all types of support you need. It's just the 0800 188 4444 number. It's helplines 24/7, and you know, there's always going to be there. It's not going to be a voicemail or a chat bot or something like that. You will get through to a human on the end of the line. Help can also be accessed through the click and chat service that I mentioned earlier, and we were talking about referrals with Rupert earlier, so they can either come directly from the farming person directly, the individual, or from a third party, the likes of FCN or Rupert at Farmer Rados. Also get from sort of social prescribers and social workers. You know, it can come from all manner of organisations. Often talking about accessing support is the most difficult one. So offering a referral on their behalf, sometimes it's easier to receive a phone call than it is to make that phone call. And obviously then sort of a little bit of the background is known. So if you feel someone's not like gonna struggle to reach out, you know, you can be that helping hand for them. So why am I here to speak to you today? We obviously know farming can be an incredibly isolating industry, and you may be the only person that the farmers sees or speaks to during the week. You can understand the issues they're facing and speak the language, and you may be aware that they're facing adversity, possibly, you know, someone's told you they've had a positive TB test, and you can just see, you know, things are taking its toll and they're struggling. Perhaps someone's opened up to you. Sorry. It's just being able to recognise, you know, when people need support and the type of services we offer. So please do bear with me. So what can you do to help us? How can you help us? Raise awareness of the services we offer. Carry our leaflets in your vehicle. Give it to a friend or a client in need. Give us a follow on social media and share everything that's coming up. I may have accidentally mentioned a targeted grant coming soon. Give it a share. Obviously, the fundraising team that Zoe's part of, they do a wonderful event program and fundraising for the charity throughout the year. You'll often see our volunteers and Zoe manning our stands at the agricultural shows. So do keep an eye out for us, and obviously, as per all the other charities, we're always on the lookout for volunteers as well, either joining the local committee. So each of the counties have a committee. So you've got Somerset committee, Dorset committee, Devon and Cornwall. They're all separate, and you know, you can help out at events or fundraising, anything like that. Watch out for your friends, your clients, your colleagues, your peers. Be aware of any challenges they face. You might be interested in taking the mental health training yourself, so you get a greater understanding. It's all accredited mental health first aider by Mental Health First Aid England. So if you're here in a professional capacity, it is recognised as professional development. So there is the end, she says with a sigh of relief. There is our helpline number, 0800 188 4444. And thank you for bearing with me wearing someone else's hat this evening.
Lindsay, you did an amazing job. I've done it before where I've stepped in to share somebody else's presentation, and it really, really isn't easy because they just think differently to you and like the way that things have been put together. And so you did a really good job, and I am super grateful to you for stepping in at the last minute. I don't think you're going to get away with it lightly though, because it looks like we might have a question for you, I'm afraid. So, Pam,
it's a name
please.
I recognise.
Oh, that's good.
We
Yeah,
keep
hopefully she'll
missing.
still speak to me.
We keep missing each other. It's like
Yes.
Devon and Cornwall. It's like, oh, Pam was here like half an hour ago.
I turn up in all sorts of strange places. I'm now doing the administration or the admin work with Paul Hooper for the ASAO. So yeah, brilliant presentation. Thank you ever so much for this evening for all our presenters. And one thing I had a question for you, Lindsay, and I'm not sure if you can help. I looked on the website because somebody mentioned to me something about a year of well-being. And I don't know if that's just an RABI thing or if it goes across FCN and all the farming support charities. I'm not quite sure to find out a bit more about it, because we're sort of on the fringe, because we, as Show Society, we work with a lot of farmers and a lot of our supporters and volunteers are farmers.
Yeah.
So we're on the edge
knowledge of everybody, and just really wanting to find out more from everybody tonight, which has been great. But more interesting about this year of well-being that some of our shows have asked about.
I will have to get Zoe to contact you directly on that one, Pam.
Okay, yeah, no worries. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I was just thinking, because I didn't know if it was something across all the groups or what it was about. So.
I think it's off the record. I think it's more of a sort of public relations and external communications kind of awareness raising thing, as opposed to something tangible that we can anchor on. But I'll have to get Zoe to update you.
Yeah, I'll speak to Zoe. No worries at all. Some of our members didn't know how they could be involved, and I was just sort of here to ask. But no, it's been really interesting listening to everybody this evening and all the great work everybody's doing. So thank you very much.
Oh, we're really grateful to you joining in, Pam. I really appreciate it. I've just got a couple of questions, if possible, Lindsay. It's nothing to. It was just about the accredited. Yeah, nothing to put you on the spot, I hope, but just the accredited mental health training. The main question that probably most people would ask is there a cost, or is there some spaces offered for free?
If it's a business, then there is a cost associated to it. It's more of a Zoe question.
Yeah.
Let me just stop sharing a minute and see if it says further down in the notes, because I did skip through a bit.
That's okay. I just thought that I know that people, because when we've obviously done it through work ourselves, and it, there was quite a cost for us to do it, and I was just thinking if there is the odd person that might be interested, but even if it was just supplemented slightly,
Yeah, I mean I know they do it all different ways. So if there's a group of people that's about 12 to 15, they will do it face to face. If it's the odd one or two people, then it can be part of a wider Zoom 2-day training and done it online. I haven't got the costs on this at all.
That's okay. We'll give Zoe a nice list.
Yeah.
I think Rupert might be typing something in the
chat.
But...
If you're interested in this, it says I'm happy to send out more information, including pricing. There is funding available to individuals in the farming sector if their employers are unwilling or unable to fund their training.
Amazing. Okay, so so there might be scope for a little bit of funding put towards it, but it may not. Oh, no problem, Rupert. Thank you ever so much. I really appreciate you coming and speaking this evening. He's got to pop off. But yeah, no, that's fine. That just answers. I just thought that's normally what people ask, isn't it? How much is something going to be? So that's great. The other thing I was going to say was where you were talking about the winter fuel grants. I know last year we had some talks with the Citizens Advice Bureau as well, and because there was a couple of people, especially in the north and Horwich area, they were saying that only kind of 50% of the community, which were generally based in the villages or in the towns, had taken up the grants that the funding that was available, because they were giving out sort of about £450 to some of the more vulnerable people, and they thought that was because it was the rural, a lot of their contingent was sort of in the rural community, and they just hadn't gone to get the the fuel grants. So I didn't know if you guys had worked with them at all.
I'm North Devon based anyway myself, so I've got really good relationships with the likes of Energy 361 and also Tara down at Exeter Community Energy, because she used to be North Devon in her previous hat. So it's getting people to claim those statutory grants that were out there. We did quite a few, especially those that were off grid, that were on oil. You had to apply for it later on in the year. So those that we were aware of, we helped them apply for that as well. But it was sort of, if I was already working with someone, you would double check and triple check and get them for that. But the RABI targeted grants are separate.
Okay.
They do go rather quickly because they are an automated process through a website application, which obviously does have its own challenges for those in the rural communities where the Wi-Fi perhaps isn't quite as great. You can ring up the helpline. So if you don't have access or your internet connection's not stable enough to get through the application process online, if you ring our helpline, they will enable you to do it over the phone. So where
Great.
they've got a quicker and more stable Wi-Fi network, but it is a case of when these targeted grants go live, try and get there within the first couple of days and try and get your applications in.
And the best way of finding out about these grants is to look on the website and other social media kind
That's
of
it.
avenues,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, and
Brilliant.
please share it. So I know it's always shared rather well on the Farming Wives Facebook group, but sharing it amongst your own networks as well is really useful.
No, thank you for that. The other thing I didn't know about was the self-help click and chat and the available mental health counselling. So both of those things now have made me more aware about the other services that you guys do. So that's really great.
I mean, Lou, you're probably aware where Devon County Council, as an employer, used to offer Kooth to anyone within Devon, and that has been withdrawn. If I got it the right way around, Kooth is for the adults and Quell is for the children.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
So RABI have the same partnership that Devon County Council did. So if anyone used to access it, because it was open to anybody who lived in Devon, that unfortunately is no longer an option. It's the TalkWorks offer is what's available now. But if people did like that click and chat and the anonymity that it can bring on click and chat, you can still use that functionality through the RABI website.
Brilliant, thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity as well to say thank you for joining us. You had some lovely volunteers that came with us to the agricultural shows last year, and they were on our Farming Support Hub stand. And they, the main people that I worked with was a gentleman called John and his wife Joan, I think it is, and they were absolutely lovely, and they were with me from first thing in the morning till last thing at night, and they were super helpful. So we're planning on attending obviously the agricultural shows as much as we can. Some of them we're going to be based in the NFU Mutual stands instead, just as a kind of cost saving exercise, and just trying to kind of be in the hub of where the farming community will be. So hopefully we'll get to see you guys up at the shows, and obviously you're welcome to join us if any of your volunteers are free. So, but I appreciate completely how busy everyone is. So it's so hard, isn't it? But I mean, just thank you again, Lindsay, for stepping in tonight, and I really appreciate it. And the information was amazing. Even if you did think the buttons were clicking the wrong way, it was all coming out. You got it all up there, so I am super grateful. I don't know if anyone else has any questions.
Yeah, I've got one. Echoing many of the sentiments Nikki's just shared. I've been able to work with quite a few different RABI volunteers throughout various events and engagements. So yeah, we're really grateful for all the organisation offers. I've signposted through many times. So we're just really grateful for the work you do, and you're able to share that and highlight that tonight for those in attendance and for our webinar. We'll look forward to seeing Zoe a bit more as well. We saw her at Devon County show. So all really great. My question is not with my professional hat on, with my personal hat on. As someone who is looking to come into the farming industry, myself and a couple of friends also likewise, it's really difficult to find information on how to get into the industry. So obviously I'm not at the age where I've got the time to go study agriculture full time now. I've got a job to hold down, and coming into the industry is quite difficult. A lot of the support you offer is for established community, but I'm wondering what sort of support can you offer through RABI to new farmers or people aspiring to come into the industry? Because it's I don't know where you start really. I work on a farm business support program which helps, and we've got a bit of working experience. But I'd be really grateful to know, what would you have to say?
Our criteria is that the main source of income is from agriculture. So you need to be a current farmer or unable to work because you're retired or due to poor health. So we haven't got anything in place for startups. I'd advise you to speak to the likes of the Hill Farm projects, Exmoor Hill Farm project, Dartmoor Hill Farm project, the Royal Countryside Fund. There is another one that's not on the tip of my tongue. Pam might know it, where there's other possible training and grants available sort of for entering that field. And obviously, Devon County Council has got the Kickstarter program, the boot camps, isn't it? There is some things in there that you might be able to look at as well.
Yeah, it's just developing a working familiarity in the industry, and I think that sort of where do you start? I think it's paralysis by analysis with all the information that's out there. There's lots of websites and lots of things, but
Yeah.
being able to go through. One day we'll be able to get our primary income will be farming. We'll be waiting quite a while yet in this current climate, I think. But no, it's really great, and the Hill Farm Network's a great avenue I didn't actually think to start with. So thank you for sharing that, Lindsay. Any other questions? Any other?
No, I think we're able to release Lindsay for the rest of our evening. But I do, like we said before to all of our speakers this evening, I think it's been so informative, and I'm really hoping we can, share this information with everybody really on our. And like I said, we're having a really good amount of people that are listening at a later date. They're finding that we're sort of advertising that when we're telling people about our webinars and things, that even if they can't join us on the evening, to register so that they can get the they can get the recording. So that's been brilliant. Luke, I don't know if you wanted to do a little bit just on the Future Farm Resilience.
Yeah, happily. I'll just share my screen and I'll jump on now. Right, so there we go. I've mentioned from kind of that talking about getting into the industry to why I'm here. So we fund this project, the Rural Support and Wellbeing Project, through this wider Future Farming Resilience Programme. Rupert, who just shared, is one of our advisors for the programme, and just to anyone watching either live or through the recording, it's just another reminder of the support that's out there. It's worth mentioning that as we've now entered July, there's just 5 months left to claim support through the programme, free farm business support, and obviously the outcome of today in the general election may have some implications onto what takes place there. But our advice is, if you've seen the branding around, you've seen posters at the livestock markets, or you've seen the flyers being dished out at agricultural shows, the best time to apply now for this free support is right now. We want to be able to ensure this support gets to as many farm businesses as possible before the end of the calendar year when the programme concludes. So there's a few different strands of support available. There's 5 bullet points highlighted there, but broadly speaking, we offer a range of workshops. So the wellbeing workshop highlighted over this side is just like what we're offering tonight with the Rural Support webinars that our trading standards team kindly organise and facilitate for us in the wider programme. We can also offer specialist workshops covering, at the minute, SFI24 is quite a popular topic. We've got some soils workshops coming up, which are really great, and we've got some speakers from the Soil Association involved. So there's a lot to take up there, and it's all free, and there's usually food and drink available as well. We're also offer digital workshops, so for developing greater familiarity with electronic devices, so using your computer to manage your books, or also build a website to promote a farm shop, or simply just learning how to use some of the new online tools being provided by various businesses, so like your feed suppliers, credit and milling now use electronic forms online to submit as opposed to paper forms. So we're able to help you complete those forms. It's quite daunting, putting all the information into the computer rather than filling in a form and putting that in the post. And then there's our classic transition workshops. These just set the agricultural transition that Lindsay alluded to into context and help you to understand where are you at and where are you going with your business. Our advisors hope travel all over the southwest, so Cornwall, Devon, Dorset, and Somerset, to run these workshops. Usually in community halls, village halls, wherever is the best place to go. And we're trying to reach as many farming communities again and land managers through these workshops. And then the pinnacle of the program, as we like to think, is the one-to-one support that we can offer. So you can come to a workshop and sign up for that. Alternatively, you can just come straight into the program for one-to-one support. We can get an agricultural advisor out from any of the, there's a range of companies at the bottom here. So Business Information Points, the lead contractor, Rupert, who spoke this evening, from Somerset Business Agency. But yeah, all these organisations we work with to provide free agricultural advisor visits to farm. So if you get in touch by visiting our website or calling the number here and let us know that you're interested in the one-to-one support, provided that you've got a valid SBI number and you've not claimed the support already, and you're based in Cornwall, Devon, Dorset or Somerset, we can organise getting an advisor out to farm and understanding how could you leverage the new SFI scheme. Are you looking to diversify your business? If so, how can we help with that? And as Rupert was alluding to, we'll try and help navigate the problems that you're facing and give you a bit of an action plan. So after a few hours with us, you can claim several hours of free support. It's generally speaking up to 12 hours, but generally speaking, after a few hours, an afternoon or so, 3 or 4 hours, we will be able to ascertain a business action plan for you. And we'll send a report across. Our advisors are always on hand if you've got the odd query or so. Again, you can just call right back in. But yeah, this support is great. It's fantastic what DEFRA are doing to provide this support to navigate their various funding pots and the new environmental land management scheme. But yeah, the support is only available now. I mean, it's the 4th of July today. That's less than 5 months to claim the support. So that's just a little reminder of the Future Farming Resilience Programme. Have we got any questions concerning what I've just shared?
I think you're all right, Luke, but that's really good to keep us up to date and sort of highlighting the fact that there is only a few more months left to go and claim the support that's available. So thank you.
So, right.
I think
So,
oh, sorry, what were you going to say?
sorry, I interrupted you.
It's all right. Have you got anything else you wanted to say about the program?
No, the only other thing that I was just going to highlight is just, I'll go next on the slide. Not got any questions to my knowledge, but just a reminder that we've got the Rural Support webinar series will be taking place for the duration of this calendar year. There's actually, if I'm not mistaken, Nikki, quite a few other webinars we're going to add to that and promote. You mentioned one about feed later on in August.
Yeah, that's
So,
right. Well, what we're going to try and do, if possible, is obviously we'll keep our first Thursday of every month. But for the month of September, October, and November, we're going to just try and do the second or third Thursday of every month as well. And we're just trying to pick on some topical themes that, as trading standards officers, we do have sort of some focus on. So obviously around September time, we thought that would be a good opportunity to do some things related to agricultural feed and feed hygiene, due mainly because obviously a lot of the cattle will be coming in, and they'll be starting to use some of their feed supplies. So depending on what the weather does decide to do to us in September. So and then yeah, there'll be a couple of others that are coming up. We were going to try and focus one around ports and also live, live exporting and importing, because there's a lot of additional requirements now that is needed as well. So we'll, as and when we get the confirmation from the speakers, then we'll keep the business information point and the Eventbrite's added and updated. So that's great. Yeah, and then we always like to show the next slide, which is the Hub of Hope, just purely for as it's such a good tool for anybody looking for some support services that are out there. As I said before, that it's quite a self-explanatory website, but it's a searching engine really for you to put in what area you live in and what support service you're looking for, and it should come up with the ones that are most relevant to you. A bit like we were saying before, that Devon has a certain TalkWorks and a certain other types of support services, whereas if you move into Somerset, Dorset, Cornwall, whatever, they sometimes vary, and having this Hub of Hope, it can give you the tools you need to just try and find out what is available closest to you. That's great, Luke. And yeah, if we just move on to the last slide, it's just a massive thank you for attending this evening. And obviously, if you're listening at a later date, if you do have obviously any questions or want to get in touch with us, it's probably best to go via the business information point email or telephone number. But yeah, I think that's it. Unless Robin or Pam, you have anything else you would like to add?
No, I'm fine, thank you. I'm going to love you and leave you now.
Yeah,
and
it's been a long one.
With the others.
I
Okay.
really appreciate
Thanks.
it. Thanks ever so much, both of you. And
Thanks
we'll look
very
forward
much
to
both
hearing
for
from you
coming.
soon. Take care. Thank you.